To learn to get rid of stress in your life, to learn how to deal with the emotional turmoil that causes strokes, heart attacks, bad health, and even weight gain? Life-changing habits for work, family, and everyone you deal with start here with Andrew Wittman. It's time to get warrior tough. Here's Andrew Wittman and Dutch Coleman.
All right, it's time to get warrior tough, the most monumental hour in media anywhere. We are leadership and mental toughness coaches Andrew Wittman and the Dutch Coleman.
Good evening, everyone.
Dutch, what's going on, brother?
Staying warm, man. Getting excited about this week's show. We're going to talk about some good stuff, man. I'm always excited about what we have for the folks and just can't wait to hear the feedback from the people. I've been really enjoying this journey with our listeners. Yeah,
it's a good time, man. And say, guys, if you want to join us on the conversation on the Twitter, right, use the hashtag #GetWarriorTough, and you can find Dutch at the Dutch Coleman. I'm at WarriorToughPhD. We'd love to hear from you. Check out the website, GetWarriorTough.com. Fill in your name and email address. Hey, go get the register for the free ebook, The Elusive Secret, and hit us up with your most difficult situation questions. And if your question's read on the air, right, we'll give you a $30 gift coupon to spend at the Get Warrior Tough store. Now, Dutch, this week. Oh, also, if you want to join us on the phone, the call-in line is 855-856-1380. That's 855-856-1380. Okay, Dutch, so here's the question for this week. We're only going to take one this week. This was the best question. Who's the better coach, Dutch or Andrew?
That's an easy one. Obviously me, right?
It is obviously you. But you know, and I back that 100%. But it's because you're much nicer anyway. I'll say that. But I kind of, you know, it's kind of apples to oranges. We're like two different styles of coaches, you know. So, you know, sometimes some people are going to hate Dutch and love Andrew, and the opposite is true. The other people are going to love Andrew and hate Dutch.
Yes, absolutely. Such is life.
No, Dutch is awesome, and together we're even better. I think we're like peanut butter and jelly, you know, cream cheese and bagels,
ham and burger,
taco and meat. Right, so that's awesome. Anyway, so there's the question of the week, right? Who's the better coach? Dutch is fantastic. All right, so hey, listen, Dutch. You know my little girl, my darling little girl. She's as gorgeous as her mom, and she started middle school this year. She's 12 years old. Okay, so she's in middle school, and we're kind of coming up, and it's coming up at home. You know, where she didn't get invited to this birthday party, and then we went to that birthday party, and then she got in. And anyway, these girls. They were like, oh, yeah, she went to the party. I remember you when you were in elementary school. You had like 5 pimples. And I'm like, well, first off, you don't even have pimples in elementary. But it's just funny how they start to try and do this in-group versus out-group. And I kind of want to explore that a little bit tonight and the psychology behind it. Because it seems that this stuff starts in a big way in middle school. If you kind of can remember back. I know it was 100 years for you to remember back to middle school. But that wasn't that long ago for me. But this is where our programming of drawing the lines and attaching ourselves to a group in search of acceptance and identity and self-worth. And I, you know, here at the Warrior Tough process, one of the biggest things we talk about is having an individual internal identity, not an external identity. But belonging to the group, any group, is a shortcut and it's a counterfeit to actually working through the process of having an internal identity. And I want to get your thoughts on it, though, Dutch, because you have kids that are coming up right behind mine into that whole, you know, I call it a cesspool because it's like you got the nerds and the jocks and the popular kids and all that, and everybody's segregating themselves out.
Absolutely. I have a newly minted 6th grader myself, and I'm so concerned about the things that she's going to come upon, and not even just the life things that they're venturing upon, but the things that involve other people, like you said, the comments that kids make, and in the separation, like you said, the cool kids, the athletes, the really smart kids, like all the different things. Even when they separate positively, it's still an issue. I think that we should all embrace each other in these different groups and take the good with the bad. If you're an athlete, that doesn't mean you can't deal with the quote unquote smart kids and vice versa. And it's an issue that when you're dealing with it yourself, I don't know how each one of us dealt with it, but when you have kids, it's harder because you can't deal with it directly. You have to deal with it secondhand, and it's so much harder, and you feel helpless at times. So hopefully the conversation today will help some parents out there or somebody who's helping another person deal with it where you're not directly involved, but you have to help give them advice on how to get through it, because that's the toughest thing when you feel powerless.
Right, you got to give the coaching. Okay, so and this is a sociological issue, it's a psychological issue, and those are, but let me just kind of break it down, and this is kind of how it's explained in psychology, and I'm going to use a made-up story, okay, and I'm down here in South Carolina, so I'm going to use the Clemson-Carolina rivalry, okay. If you're out in Alabama, it's Alabama and Auburn. If it's, who is it, Penn State and who? Who's Penn State?
Penn State. It's Penn State and Ohio State.
And Ohio State, okay, because I knew it was Ohio State, Michigan, right? Okay, so it's Penn State and everybody. All right, so right,
it's manufactured.
It's manufactured, right? So okay, so there's this kid named Michael, right, and he's a college freshman at Clemson University, and which was his first choice for undergraduate study because both of Michael's parents and his older brother attended Clemson. In fact, Michael's mom and dad met at Clemson. Okay, so, and Michael, he loves to watch Clemson football play their games. And in fact, he and his family, he grew up over the last 20 years. His entire life, they never missed a home game, and they went to a lot of away games too. And Michael, one of Michael's new roommates, they're living out in town. They're living off campus, so he has a roommate that is also at Clemson. His name was Josh, and his family was just as supportive of Clemson's teams as Michael were, so they're Clemson Tiger diehard fans. Michael and Josh share a room with a kid named Tim, who comes from a family of Carolina Gamecock fans. Michael and Josh, what happens is they tend to team up and exclude Tim from activities that are sports-related, like going out to the sports bar to watch the game, and they just rip on him, which is fun and joking first, but then it delves into where feelings get hurt very quickly. Michael and Josh are both part of the same in-group, which is a group that the person is part of that strongly identifies with and is loyal to something. Once we have identified ourselves as belonging to a group, we see ourselves and the other members of our group as being better from the folks that are in other groups. Of course we do, because why would we be part of the group, right? So in other words, we tend to think of the world in terms of us and them. In-groups distinguish themselves from other groups based on whatever their membership criteria are. And, for example, the Clemson fans distinguish themselves by wearing that purple and orange to all the games, right? And sitting on the same side if you can, and sit in a group. Now, you were out at the national championship. Did all the Clemson fans try to sit together? I know all the students have a section out there at Death Valley, right?
Yeah, they have specific sections even in the national championship game, but then at some point they're general admission. So, okay. But for the most part, they have the stadium divided.
Now, if you're a Clemson fan, wouldn't you want to sit in the Clemson section? You wouldn't necessarily want to sit in the other team's section, would you?
No, especially when it's Alabama, because their fans are just so untrained and so classless. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go. Dutch is making my point. The membership criteria might include attending all the games and the away games or the home games, keeping up with the statistics, and having a strong dislike for the rival. Like, you can't be a true fan unless you hate the other, the Gamecocks. You can't be a true Alabama fan if you don't hate Auburn, right? So the us refers to the in-group, and the them is the out-group, and the out-group is any person that's not a member that is loyal to your group. And we start seeing these lines being drawn in middle school, and you know what? And we get it honest because we learned it from our parents. Because our parents did the same thing in middle school, and that was an autopilot programming, and then we just carried that through the rest of our life, and we try to identify ourselves by belonging to different groups.
And it's coming from it's coming from our parents. It's coming from older kids that are setting examples. It's coming from, even if you hadn't been raised that way, you got friends who with different experiences that are influencing you. So you're almost in the middle of it. Even if you've been raised a certain way, you still have to deal with what's happening at large. Because at large, as Andrew's explaining, this is the norm. This is what's real, no matter that you've been trained a certain way. So you have to be very strong. Even after you have the knowledge and information that we're going to give you, you still have to be very strong.
Right. And what we want to do is kind of tonight, I want to kind of flip the thinking on this. I'm just laying the foundation right now, but how can we use this to our advantage? Because this is the way the world is. And when you hang out with Dutch and I, you're going to find out that when bad news happens, I get happy. I want to take whatever the thing is. I want to know what is an honest assessment of objective reality, and I want to figure out how can I use it to my advantage. How can I use it to get to my target? How can I use it to profit me? Not trying to hurt other people, because a lot of times how can I use it to my advantage means that I can help people get out of their own way. And that's really but the biggest key to this is internal identity. Right, so I'm taking a shortcut by trying to belong to, I'm flying my, and I'm not saying don't be a fan, okay, because we all, you know, what I'm saying is that's not my identity, because when that group goes away, or I get kicked out, because what happens, and I've seen this in middle school, there's just like it's a cat fight to get in the in-group and maintain your status as an in-group person and not be, you know, drummed out or shunned. Dutch, have you ever seen, like, what was that, the Amish Mafia show? You know, where the Amish, you know, the Discovery Channel Amish, you know, they did like a reality show. Have you ever seen that?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen that one.
Well, it's, man, yeah. So they shun people, man. They actually will. They have like it's a punishment if you don't. You know that their group will shun you and kick you out of the community. Like they'll like turn their back on you. They can't look at you. They don't speak your name. There's like a shunning. Then that, like, it's real. Like, then you're kicked out. So if you don't behave a certain way and maintain loyalty, they kick you out of the group. Now, that's an extreme case of it, but I'm seeing this with my little girl in middle school.
Yeah, you know, now that you mentioned, I've seen a different show where they gave an example of that, and it's real because you're talking about parents shunning kids. And anytime that happens in that community, in any community, that's tough. That's real. But, yeah, it's happened as early as middle school. I think that's where we see it most because I think kids are somewhat innocent up until that point, and then that's when it starts getting real. You see little light sprinkling of it maybe in elementary school if you have some more of your advanced kids, but it really hits hard in middle school.
Yeah, and they don't have the tools necessarily, you know, to deal with it, and it's just like flying elbows, man. It's just it's like roller derby in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is it continues all the way through high school. And then if you do go to college, it happens in college. That's why we all pledge. If we pledge, or we're part of an athletic club, or a team, or the math club, or the debate team, or we're all looking for some group to identify ourselves with.
And as Andrew said, just because you join these groups, just because you're on these sports teams, just because you're a fan, doesn't mean you have to participate in that aspect of it. You don't have to be that way, and this information is going to help you be able to do both, be able to maintain your position in those groups and maybe influence others to not behave that way.
Right, and here specifically what Dutch is saying is not the us versus them mentality. Like I'm an Alabama fan, and some of my best friends are Auburn fans. I love them. We have dinner with them. We have conversations. I ain't mad at them. You know, if they beat us, you know, they give me the ribbing, like after that one, you know, there was that one game where they won in the last second. I got so tired of hearing just a second. Hey, Andrew, just a second. Right? But I got it. It was just joking because we really don't, it's not really us versus them because our kids play together. And to be honest with you, we're going to watch out for each other's kids. So that's an in-group, right? The neighborhood kids, the kids in the court, that's an in-group. Okay? And there's any stranger, well, that's an out-group. So, hey, Dutch, there was this, like, they did this experiment where these social psychologists came in to document this. And what they did is they put a group of people together to see how the formation of a group identity and group cohesion went. So in this one experiment, they just brought people in and they randomly assigned them to do groups. You're the blue team, you're the green team. They gave out blue hats and shirts to one and green hats and shirts to the other. And literally by lunchtime, dude, I mean, within 4 hours, with psychologically meaningless colors and names, the participants evaluated their group higher and more positively with biases against the other group by lunchtime over blue and green, dude. The battle lines were drawn simply by wearing a blue shirt and a green shirt. Now, the guy, one of the social psychologists was a guy that grew up in Cyprus. And he said, it reminded me of the Greek and the Turkish Jews differentiating themselves by wearing the different sashes, black and red. And when tensions rose, the sashes became more sacred, right? And members would rather die than wear the other person's colors. Now, we're going to pick this up in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in like 2 minutes. And I want to get your thoughts on this, of the colors, because we see that in our society, and it's just out of control. You're listening to the Get Warrior Tough radio show with Dutch Coleman and Andrew Wittman.